So, the next thing to do, or the next thing that we need to discuss is this breaking news by Jake Mercier. Jake is a writer. I think he has his own publication called Citizen Source. He writes a lot of great articles on Medium, and he actually broke some pretty incredible news regarding the poll, specifically the University of New Hampshire poll. Now, I don't know if you all remember this. I actually talked about this a little bit at length the other day, how there was actually a Tulsi Gabbard supporter who called, or emailed, University of New Hampshire, and was like, yo, why haven't y'all polled? And they were like, oh, well, if you have $50,000, we'll do it for you. You got $50,000? Well, then we can't do it. Nah. It's actually worse than that. But it sounded good, I guess, when they sent the email off. The polling director actually sent that email off to the Tulsi supporter. So actually, I'm gonna let y'all read this article with me, because it's a damn good article. So shout out to Jake Mercier. New Hampshire pollster. Our polling schedule is determined by CNN. Oh, damn. That's really all you needed to read, right? But we're going to keep on reading anyway. That's really all you needed, but we'll keep on going. All right. So Jake says in this article, it is no secret that the Democratic establishment fears Tulsi Gabbard. It is also no secret that they are perfectly willing to pull the necessary strings to determine the outcome of an election. See 2016. Many now are sounding the alarm on the DNC's method on who gets airtime during the 2020 debates. In an exclusive comment to Citizen Source, the University of New Hampshire Survey Center, one of the only DNC-approved pollsters in New Hampshire, due to the fact that they are partners with CNN, explained why they wouldn't be conducting a poll this month in the battleground state before the crucial September debate. Director Andrew E. Smith responded, the UNH Survey Center is funded by grants and contracts. We have contracted with CNN during this primary cycle, as we have since 2000. Our polling schedule is determined by CNN and their polling budget. What? I'm going to read that again. We have contracted with CNN. Our polling schedule is determined by CNN and their polling budget. Jake Mercier goes on to write, Mr. Smith, just a few days before, told a Tulsi Gabbard supporter that they would be happy to conduct a poll if someone was willing to pay the $50,000 cost, a cost that CNN usually covers. Of course, even if a third party provided the funding, the poll wouldn't count, even if it had the same methodology, simply because it wasn't funded by CNN or another DNC-approved media organization. Jake goes on to say, why is CNN, a company that has previously been caught colluding with the DNC to ask predetermined questions to then candidate Hillary Clinton, not providing the necessary funding for a poll in one of the most important battleground states until October? I guess that's when they're scheduled to conduct their next poll. How are other DNC pollsters deciding when to release those polls? And I think this is pretty important information right here. Interestingly enough, Tulsi Gabbard routinely polls well above 2% in New Hampshire. I've said it repeatedly on this show. And most of y'all have, I just want to make sure we don't have any super chats. We're good. But yeah, most of you all know this. I've said Tulsi does extremely well in New Hampshire because even though it is traditionally a blue state, quote unquote, it is heavily libertarian leaning. And we all know Tulsi does extremely well with libertarians because most libertarians simply just want common sense. That's like the bare minimum they're going for, right? The bar is set pretty low in 2019. I'm not going to lie to you. But they appreciate Tulsi being no nonsense, having integrity, demonstrating conviction, and having, once again, common sense. So she's always done well in New Hampshire. Now she polls just behind Pete Buttigieg. She polls sixth place with an average of 3.3%. That's not small potatoes, people. That's around the place where Bernie was polling at this time. So it's not like it's not a big deal. I'm talking about this is where Bernie was polling in 2015 around this time. It's not, trust me, y'all. That's a big deal. So it says, in fact, Tulsi is polling above Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, Andrew Yang, Julian Castro, and Cory Booker in New Hampshire, all candidates that will be on the next debate stage. So I think it probably should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Why the hell is CNN? Because so I'm just going to say it like this. Is this not open colluding once again? Like, it's actually more open now than it was before, because not at least, but in 2016, there was just a limited amount of debates. They didn't attempt to limit the field because there wasn't that much. And then the people who were there outside of Bernie and Hillary, they weren't really competition, right? Martin O'Malley was the biggest competition and was the biggest threat to Bernie and Hillary, and that wasn't really a serious threat, right? So then it wasn't as big of a deal outside of the fact that they were obviously throwing Hillary softball questions and then trying to get Bernie on the gotcha questions. This is a completely different game that we are playing right now as far as the debates are concerned, because yeah, they may have expanded the amount of debates, but it looks like, and I'm sure that you all would agree, because at first it used to look like conspiracy. I've been saying this from the beginning. I've said this since the beginning of this election, and even right before, when I realized that Tulsi was running. It's as scared as the establishment is of Bernie Sanders, and they are indeed scared of him. They are terrified of Tulsi Gabbard. And the comparison between how scared they are of Bernie and how scared they are of Tulsi, it is actually not even close. Here's why. The unfortunate truth of the matter is, Bernie is a little bit more willing to capitulate to the military-industrial complex and the foreign policy establishment than Tulsi is. And not only is Tulsi not willing to do so, but she understands all the ways that they will twist and turn their logic and manipulate and contort their rhetoric to try and get you they try and back you into a corner so that you're forced to appease the military-industrial complex, to capitulate to the military-industrial complex, because after a while they manipulate so much and they set you in so many rhetorical traps that you have to be, just on point with every single retort you have. In other words, you have to understand these issues with the military-industrial complex and foreign policy at a fundamental level, almost at an experiential level, and Tulsi has both. That's why they're scared of her. Not because they don't deem Bernie as a threat, but it's because of everything that Tulsi brings to the table experientially and how much conviction she's had. It's one thing if you're Bernie, who is a threat because he's been a lifelong outsider. That's why he's a threat. But that's a different type of threat from somebody who was literally about to be anointed the queen of the Democratic establishment, in the words of Van Jones, not myself. Tulsi was about to be anointed, and she gave it up, and she knows their game, and she wants no part of it. And oh, by the way, she's a veteran who is still serving, who is a major. Oh, by the way, she's only 38 years old. Oh, by the way, she's never lost an election. Oh, by the way, not only has she never lost an election, people, she's always back, as in that she'll be 2%, 1%, 3% every single election that she's been in. And she ends up winning by a margin of 20%. And the establishment knows this. These are some of the reasons why she was being anointed the queen of the Democratic Party, because she was seemingly unbeatable. And she was also willing to play their game a little bit. That's how you become vice chair of the Democratic Party. Except she doesn't play for them anymore. And so these rules weren't to stop Bernie Sanders from getting ahead. They have a different game for him. They know they can't stop Bernie until the election actually starts. They're going to start election rigging or ballot rigging. They got to start that for Bernie at the actual voting booth with the machines, because you can't stop his momentum before that point. Tulsi is different. They know Tulsi has a type of momentum. This is what I always say. Tulsi has that type of momentum that she can take a red state like Texas and turn it blue. I've seen the woman, anybody who sits in a room with her is instantly converted. It's not a I don't care who they supported before that. Not a single candidate withstanding on the Democratic and Republican Party. If you sit in the room with her, you were no longer a Trump supporter. You were no longer a Warren supporter. You're no longer an XY. Doesn't matter. You're a total supporter now. I've seen it. I've seen her bring tears to people's eyes every single time I've seen her speak. The establishment knows this. That is exactly why they wanted her to run after Hillary, because they knew it would mean 2 or 4 straight terms of Democratic establishment rule. So that is why these polling, why? Why are they running? Because they need Tulsi out. So why is the CNN being allowed to collude again with the DNC? If they did not learn their lesson. Because remember, CNN got caught colluding with DNC in 2016. It's one thing, okay, cool, you're a sponsor, blah, 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 but you've already proven to be irresponsible with that responsibility. You did not engage in good faith when you had the chance to prove that you were going to, I get it. You got to work with somebody, I guess. If you're the DNC in the media, that happens. You got to work with somebody. As far as the overall umbrella of a corporation is concerned, I get that. But CNN, MSNBC, CBS, not only them, but then all the publications, the Washington Post and all that, they prove that they cannot handle it. I don't know if you all remember this, but do you remember when the DNC, and this is WikiLeaks released this, the DNC screened an op-ed written by a CNN contributor, Mario Cardona, blasting Sanders fans for their behavior at the Nevada State Party convention before it was published. Cardona sent a draft of the column to the DNC and wrote, "I want to make sure it's not too heavy-handed. Please let me know ASAP. Thanks." Now, once again, this would be different if it wasn't a clear pattern of behavior, because what did we later find out? Oh yeah, Donna Brazile gave questions to Hillary Clinton before the debates. And there's really, if you go through WikiLeaks, it's a litany of examples that show that CNN and people at CNN use that relationship with the DNC specifically to foster an environment that was not conducive to a true democracy as far as the Democratic primary is concerned. To undermine the democratic process. And yet, instead of learning their lesson, once again, the DNC has chosen instead to continue to make the same mistakes. And of course, when Trump ultimately wins again, because that's what it's looking like, they're going to blame us. Somehow Tulsi's going to get blamed. Somehow Bernie's going to get blamed. Somehow Jill Stein's going to get blamed again. Somehow they're going to point a finger at Susan Sarandon. Nina Turner going to get blamed. But it's never, I'm telling you, it's like an abusive relationship with these people. It is. It has to be somebody else's fault. It can't possibly be the fault of the DNC and their inability to run bro, the Republicans run a better primary than the DNC does. The Republicans do. That's saying something. Because the Republicans are notorious for voter suppression. But the DNC, they've been taking it to a different level. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Roku TV, and on JustNForm.com. Also, you can make sure that you're subscribed to the channel by going to the subscribe button, pressing it, and hitting that notification bell to get all of our notifications. And of course, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon by supporting the show by donating as little as $1. You can click on the link in the description below for that. And remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.